Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and the king, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are doing an updated tier list, and we're going to be talking about all of these killers. Our last tier list did pretty good. You guys seem to enjoy it, so we're back again, making a brand new one. Now, of course, like every other tier list, a few disclaimers before we jump on into this. Number one, this is all opinion based. You don't need to agree with me. This is 100% subjective, meaning you can have a different opinion than me, and that's completely fine. I'm just here to tell you guys what I think about every single killer. Number two, this is balanced on PC at rank 1 with no perks. So no perks will be involved, just the base killers themselves. And I'm going to be giving you guys my opinions on every single one of these based on those categories. With that out of the way, we can go ahead and jump on into this video. But before we do, we have a sponsor for today's video. And today's sponsor is Monster Legends. Now, recently I started playing Monster Legends, and I know a lot of you guys already played this game yourself. And for those of you guys that aren't playing this game, what are you guys waiting for? Monster Legends is a free-to-play game on iOS and Android. I've collected all of these different monsters, and it's very simple. First, you can breed 2 different species to create a new type of monster. There are different monster collections, so I'm trying to complete all of them, but I'm quite far from doing that and collecting everything, but we're getting there. Once I have the new baby tiny monster, I can feed it and it grows. It gains battle abilities and becomes a beast. When my monster has the proper size and is well trained and grow, this is when I can take them into battles, and this is so fun. I can fight in real time against my friend, and you guys know me, I'm super competitive, so I just want to prove that I'm the best. You can also connect this with Facebook, so you can play on all of your devices and easily find some friends who also play the game. And with this, I also like to tease them and compare my islands and collections against theirs. There's also some different PvP modes where I can take my strongest monsters and fight in a special dungeon or in the adventure map. But I encourage you guys to download this game yourself and discover it and see how amazing the world of Monster Legends really is. There's a big community and a lot of players behind it. With that being said, again, if you guys want to play Monster Legends, it's absolutely free. All you guys need to do is to click on the link in the description, and you'll be able to get your hands on the game yourself. All right, with that being said, we can go ahead and move on with this tier list video. A change of appearance because I'm actually recording this video a little bit later, so let's jump on into it. Remember, there's disclaimers at the beginning of the video that we did mention. This is 100% subjective. You don't need to agree with me. There's no right or wrong answers. This is all opinion based. This is balanced in the red ranks on PC without using any perks, just add-ons. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start on this list. We're going to try to go into sequential order with how Dead by Daylight has all the killers in order of appearance. So let's start off with the Trapper. What are some of his pros? The first big pro that I have for the Trapper is that he can cut loops and vaults off. This is super efficient. As you guys know, looping is the strongest way in beating a killer. There's other things that you can do, such as being immersive and stuff like that, but looping a killer is how you keep the killer distracted. It's known. And with the Trapper, it throws a completely different ball in the game that you're playing. So what ends up happening, survivors that are accustomed to running a loop, for example, let's say you're going to the killer track, you know, you can vault 3 times and then you can run to another tile. What ends up happening now is that if there's a trap there and you don't know it's there, you will automatically end that chase. Now, if you do know the trap is there, especially if you're playing against a trapper, you can sense, okay, the trap is going to place a trap here, here, here. You then kind of acknowledge there could be a trap there. It makes you second guess yourself. You can run to a different loop, or if you actually see it, it forces you to go somewhere else. You're not going to step in the trap. If you see it, you're going to go somewhere else, giving the trapper an amazing time at catching up with you. So on all of the very safe loops, all those long infinite loops, the trapper can really capitalize on it, and that's where a lot of other killers struggle. However, on the flip side, the trapper needs time to set up. Because of this time, by the time you set all your traps up and you get your area secured, 3 or 4 gens are going to be popped. Since Trapper was the first killer in the game, they never took into account about generator pressure and how fast gens can fly, and in the meta of 2020, gens fly quickly. And without any perks, as we're ranking these guys, it's really hard for someone like the Trapper to keep map pressure up because of his just 150 movement speed and a power that doesn't really help with that. So there is a backhanded benefit of this, and that's you can get a beautiful 3-gen strat if you know what you're doing. So if you set up your traps, you keep an eye on 3 generators relatively close to you. You just go ahead, place the traps down next to them, when the end game comes, you can go ahead and capitalize on that very beautifully, because everybody's going to be running into all of your traps and you can snowball from there. Hot Starva, Entity's Left Hand are two of the best trapper mains that I know, and they use these strategies beautifully, and they place traps in very elaborate places as well. There's even places where you can place the traps where survivors can't even disarm it. So they do a really good job at playing these guys. If you want to learn more about the trapper himself and how to play him efficiently, you can check those two guys out. I am mediocre compared to them, and a lot of people praise me as a really good trapper. In addition to this, he has the best gate defense in the game. You can literally place 2 traps at the exit gates, and you just basically wait until one of them is disarmed. Then you go ahead, walk over there, and you can replace it and look for a survivor and end that really quickly. Unlike other killers that need to consistently go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, he can just stand up and wait. So that's another big benefit that he has for him. And the biggest downside to the trapper is that his power can be completely negated. Because his power is a trap, you can easily just go up and disarm the trap. And if you're placing them consistently in the same places, survivors eventually catch on. Or if you're playing against a Swift, you're going to get dominated because they know exactly where your traps are. The good thing is you can't sabotage traps anymore, so that's a benefit to that. But besides that, if the survivors know where your traps are, it's a little bit more difficult keeping your power up. With that being said, it's time to rank this bad boy, and I am gonna put him in the B tier. Now keep another thing in mind, the way we are going to be ranking these killers and putting them on the list, whoever is closer to the left hand side will be better than everybody else. So Trapper is the first one in the B tier list, so we're gonna leave him there for now, and we'll come back to him and see where he ranks. So moving on the list, the next killer that was added on into the game was the Hillbilly, and it is no secret that the Hillbilly is a strong killer. Now, as I mentioned with the Trapper, there's 2 things that a killer needs to do to be a very efficient killer. Number 1 is to combat loops. If you can go ahead and basically stop the survivors from looping you, or the killer's power does anything to cut the chases down and make the loop shorter, they're a good killer. The second thing about this is pressure. The more pressure you can apply, map pressure that is, the better you are. And with a killer like the Hillbilly, he can do both. He can apply that map pressure because of his high mobility when he's using his chainsaw as a tool. And then on top of that, he can also cut loops down if you can really control him. Some of the best players that play Hillbilly really know how to stop all the loops. They turn those corners insanely well. And even a Killer Shack loops, which is one of the safest loops in the game, is going to be negated if they know what they're doing. Now for the rest of us that are just average as Hillbilly, you know, he's still a really strong killer because he has something else going for him. He has a one-shot down ability. Now putting this with some add-ons, you really dominate the game. You have a beautiful snowball effect. Find someone, mow them down with your chainsaw, put them on a hook, go to a generator, rinse and repeat. And he is one of the few killers that have the ability to do something as powerful as this, and it's really interesting to see since he was one of the first killers in the game. The other 2 killers that we had, the Wraith and the Trapper, are quite lackluster when compared against the Hillbilly. So as I said, he has a lot of good things going for him. He can cut his loops down, he has great map pressure, and he has that one-shot ability, but even the Hillbilly is not immune to everything. Now, while looping is a benefit that he has, looping is also a downside to him, because if you don't know how to use the chainsaw, what ends up happening is that people can just loop you. You're a regular 115 killer at that point, and your weapon becomes useless. That chainsaw, you can't do nothing about it. And on top of that, a lot of people like revving their chainsaw and forcing the survivor to drop the pallet. If you miscalculate this, or if the survivor is smart about their loops, they can bait you into using your chainsaw, not dropping it, and continuing to loop. In addition to this, sometimes the mobility of the chainsaw is a little bit difficult to handle if you're, let's say, riding someone behind them and you have the chainsaw ready to go straight through their back and they quickly turn left or right. If you misjudge and go to the right when they go left because of that 45-degree cone, you can't really make that up. And if you hit a wall or something like that, that's pretty much going to be it for you. You have to restart the chase, but it doesn't take that long to go ahead and catch up back to them. But chances are they can make it to a vault or a pallet and then extend that chase. But it's very rare that you see that happening, and Hillbilly has way more pros than he has cons, and for that reason, we're putting him in the A+ category. He's just one of those killers that is just Delicious. There's not much they need to do to him. With add-ons, he becomes way more bulkier, way more powerful. Without add-ons, he's still manageable. It's definitely a little bit more difficult with the longer chainsaw charge time, but he's still one of the best killers in the game. Moving on the list, we were talking about the Wraith just a second ago, and the Wraith is going to be the next person on the list. And the Wraith is one of those characters that, you know, really needs some improvements. He still can be beneficial if you use some of the cool add-ons on him, and True Talent has made a bunch of videos showing how viable the Wraith can really be, but in my opinion, the Wraith isn't as top tier as some of these other killers. True Talent is just a really, really good killer, and he can basically make anybody look really, really good. And for the average person playing the Wraith, you won't do as good, and that's for a couple of reasons. Number one, the Wraith is just a 115 movement speed killer, and his power does literally nothing to help with that. Sure, you can go invisible and chase down some of your survivors and make the distance shorter, but then you'll have to uncloak. By the time you uncloak, they're probably waiting at a pallet or a vault, and then you would have to continue. And by the time you do uncloak, you're, as I mentioned, just a 115% killer. The only time this is good is for initially hitting survivors that don't know it's you yet, but as soon as everybody hears that bell, that whole stealth aspect goes out of the window. Everybody is now on edge, paying attention. Is the Wraith coming around the corner? And as soon as they see you, they're gonna run away. You'll have to chase them, and then you'll have to uncloak. And initially, you'll get that first hit because you do move a little bit faster while you are cloaked. But after that, as I mentioned, you're just a normal, basic killer. There's nothing special about the Wraith, and that's because, as I mentioned, same thing with the Trapper, he was one of the earlier killers in the game that really needs some love. And with that being said, we are going to have to rank him, and I'm going to put him in the C tier. I would put him up there with Trapper, as I did say I'm a little bit biased with Trapper, but Trapper is on a low B. He's borderline 2C, and Wraith is borderline C to B. I'm gonna have to put him down there because once everything's out the window and everybody knows you're Wraith, there's not much you can do about it. And the add-ons definitely do help. You can run the ghost add-ons with the ultra rare add-on and go ahead and make it so you have no red stain and no bell notification. Or you can use the 2 speed add-ons to break things faster and move faster, which is really good in his hands, but besides that, he's just a regular killer. Moving down the list, we have the Nurse. The Nurse was the next killer released on into the game as a free chapter, the first chapter. And there's not much to be said about Nurse. She is the best killer in the game, hands down. There is really no debate about it when it comes down to it. And I'll tell you why. First of all, there might be some people like, what, the Nurse? And that may be because you are on console. For people that are on console, it's a way more difficult task to perform well as a Nurse than it is on PC. Although I have seen some really good Nurse players playing on console. Recently, we did a Dead by Daylight tournament on PS4, and I seen probably the best DBD console Nurse. With that being said, the Nurse just does everything right. Just like the Hillbilly, as I mentioned, she can go ahead and do great map pressure, and she combats looping better than any killer in the game. Just because she can literally blink through them. So you can try and mind game her or try to loop her. It won't work as efficiently as working on some other killers, and I don't know, there's just not much to say about her. She's just really good. Now, they recently made some changes to her where you have to actually recharge both of your blinks in order to use them, and you also have this fatigue period where you can't blink, and this is just a little bit more balancing so survivors can have an equal opportunity to play against her. And even with that, if you are a good Nurse main, it really means nothing. Pop 2 add-ons there and you'll be the good old Nurse yet again, and if you're efficient with your blinks, you get the job done quickly. The common way that players go ahead and try to combat the Nurse is by mind gaming her. And if you are a less experienced Nurse, you might fall for some of these mind games. And once you head into the ranks of red and purple, everybody kind of uses these mind games against you. You become accustomed to it, and it's almost like you predict it. For example, if someone's running around the corner, you would short blink instead of long blinking all the way where you expect them to be, and they'll most likely run back into you. So there's not much that you can do to combat her. The only way that you would play bad as a Nurse is if you are inexperienced, or if for some reason you can't find any survivors and the generators fly really quickly, but that's with every killer. But besides those two things, there isn't much to take away from the nurse. The only things that we can say negatively about her is that she's 90% movement speed, which means during those fatigue periods, you won't be catching up to your survivors. They'll be a little bit faster to you. And if your blinks aren't on point, you won't catch the survivors. But that is in the player's fault and not in the killer's fault. If we're thinking about the best nurse there is, there's quite a few of them, then it's pretty much unstoppable. Moving on the list, we now have Michael Myers. Now, Michael Myers is the first licensed killer introduced into the game, and you know, he is a horror icon. Having him in the game is amazing. So what are the pros to playing this guy? Well, first of all, you start off with no heartbeat whatsoever. You can easily go to a survivor. If they're working on a gen, you can pull them off, get an easy smack, and then you need to charge up. This is where some of the issues start coming. You need to charge up from tier 1 to tier 2, which is relatively quickly, then from tier 2 to tier 3. The problem with this is, when you're actually just looking at the survivors, they're just running away. You're not catching up to them. They're building distance, and you have to charge your power up. This is relying on survivors, and another downside to this, if you stock on someone too much, you won't be able to stock them anymore. Now, there is a big benefit to stocking, and that's having that one-shot ability for 60 seconds in tier 3. This buys you amazing time, and you can really snowball and get everybody down during this time. You have faster vault speed, so you're just a killing machine ready for blood, and you go and smack everybody down. It's very efficient, but the downside, as I did mention, is that you need to charge this power up. When your power is not being used, what ends up happening is you're just a regular killer. In addition to this, as I mentioned before, you kind of have to stock your survivors in order to get your power to be better. So if someone is pallet looping you and they drop the pallet, you would just have to stare at them rather than breaking the pallet and continue chasing them down. You'd have to stock until they finally run away or you get enough power, and then you would have to either continue chasing them while other people are working on generators or going to someone else and finding a brand new target. However, as I did mention, he still has that great one-shot ability. Essentially, he's better than the Trapper and the Wraith because of this, and for that reason, we are going to go ahead and put Mr. Michael Myers above the Trapper on the B tier. He is the better killer when it comes down to the two of them. Moving down the list, we now have the Huntress, and the Huntress was an amazing killer when she came out, and as time went on, we've seen some amazing players playing this killer. And the Huntress has a lot going for her. She was the first projectile killer in the game, and she can cut those loops and chases down so quickly. If you toss a hatchet, you can quickly just aim up, toss again, end that chase really fast. Some loops, as you know, she can go through windows with her hatchets and pallets. Because of this, she can stop some loops. Now, not all loops are able to do this, and the survivors need to be in the right position, and sometimes the hitboxes are wonky, but if you can aim your hatchet right through some little nooks and crannies, you can easily take some people down. In addition to this, she has amazing pressure when it comes to people that are on hooks and people that are in the basement because of her hatchet. She also has this thing that a lot of killers don't have, and that's forcing survivors into a dead zone or a corner where you would want them to go. All she needs to do is raise her hatchet up, walk closer to you, and you won't know what to do. You'll be trying to avoid this hatchet, so you'll hide behind some debris. Eventually, she gets really close to you, and she can just smack you down with her hatchet or her regular weapon. Now, she does have some things that kind of weigh against her. The biggest thing is 110% movement speed. Because of this, she is more susceptible to getting looped, and that's basically how you beat her. If you loop a Huntress well, you'll beat her, especially at some of those safe loops where you can't get hit with hatchets. Now, the only way she can combat this is by trying to mind game you, but if you pay a lot of attention and you're very vigilant, she's going to have a more difficult time hitting you. And the biggest thing that a lot of Huntresses do, similar to Hillbilly, is that they raise their hatchet in anticipation that you're going to drop the pallet. If you choose not to drop this pallet and you run in a direction and they miss, you can continue and extend that loop. In addition to this, she also has terrible generator pressure on some of the bigger maps. If the maps are smaller, you can toss her hatchets if you're really accurate to people that are working on them. But even now, that's a little bit changed because they reworked hitboxes a little bit, so you can't even do that fully. But Some of the better Huntresses like Queen Kira or Umbra really hit some of those shots, and for that she still has pressure on some of the generators, but on the really big wide open maps it's a little bit more difficult. But take nothing away from the Huntress, she's really good, she can end those chases really quickly. As I mentioned, the first projectile killer, the first kind of killer that we've seen, and we're going to have to rank her in the A tier. She's definitely one of the stronger killers, she's above that average curve, and she gets the job done. Moving on the list, we have the Hag. Now the Hag is a killer that I personally am not good with whatsoever, but I can respect her and her craft and how good she is. I've seen some of the best Hag players play, and she is a force to be reckoned with. Now, she has a couple things going for her. Number one, she has 10 traps that she can place all around the map, and survivors working on generators that run into this trap or run around loops, you can easily just teleport and smack them. This sets up a lot of things. There's a little bit of skill involved with this, knowing where to place your trap, similar to Trapper. Place them around generators. When someone goes to it, you can just teleport and smack them. If they're looping you around a pallet, you can easily just place it right there, and then you can mind game them by actually teleporting to their trap if they trigger it, or choosing not to, and then smacking them down as well. In addition to this, she has amazing hook pressure, because once you put someone on the hook, you can place traps around, and if they go ahead and walk towards that survivor, you can easily teleport and smack them down. If they choose not to do this, you can easily just go over, kind of keep an eye on them because you have a smaller heartbeat, and walk straight back over, and they'll probably be crouch walking, trying to unhook the person, and you'll still get that smackdown. Now, she does have a lot of things that go against her as well. She is 110%. As you know, the Huntress was also 110%. When you're a 110 killer, your power really needs to make up for the effects of 110% movement speed. And her power doesn't go all the way to making that up. And because of this, she can be looped. And just like the Huntress, if you loop her efficiently, you don't fall for any of her mind games, it's kind of difficult. The wisest thing to do is to leave that survivor alone and go somewhere else. In addition to this, sometimes her traps can be negated by crouch walking. If the survivor decides to crouch and just walk and they're not near, they can easily get an unhook or work on a gen without you knowing whatsoever. And on top of all of this, the icing on the cake with the Hag, her power can be negated if she's too far from her trap. So if someone does trigger her trap, or if she's carrying a survivor, or if she's in chase with someone and someone triggers all of her traps knowing where they're at, what ends up happening is that there's nothing she can do about it, and all those traps that she spends so long placing will be completely negated. Now, however, she still can get the job done. She can cut loops off, she can put them at vault, she can give the survivors a jump scare. She's definitely a good killer, and Odds made a video recently talking about one of the best Hag players that he knows, and I'll leave that video in the description for you guys so you guys can go check it out yourself. And watching this, I understand and respect how good some of these Huntress or Hag players, are. So we're going to go ahead and put Miss Haggy Hag in the B+ tier, because she definitely is a strong killer in the right hands. The Doctor is up next, and you guys know me. For the longest while, I've absolutely hated the Doctor until recently when he got his mid-chapter patch update. And since then, I've been loving the Doctor. It's still annoying to play against him, but playing as him has been a blessing. The Doctor has a lot of things going for him as well. This was Dead by Daylight's first attempt in combating looping. When the game was in its alpha days and beta days, looping wasn't around. It was a bunch of pallets, a bunch of vaults, and people really just didn't know what to do and how to utilize the tools that they had to survive, so they would go around dropping all these pallets. Eventually, people wisened up and they realized they can just run around these pallets and the killers can't catch them. That's how infinite loops are created, and that's how looping in general was created. Dead by Daylight introduced a character known as the Doctor to interrupt actions of dropping pallets and stopping vaults. This was their little fix to the looping, which would soon, we'll learn, become a huge problem, and now meta, you can't really change that. Little quick story, back in the days, this was actually frowned upon if you looped, because it was almost considered an exploit going around infinite loops where this killer can literally not catch you. Nowadays, it's just so common that everybody does it, and if you can do it well, you get praised. So Doctor was that guy that they introduced into the game to stop this, and Now, with the most recent patch, he can do that a little bit. You can shock and make it so that survivors can't vault things, make it so they can't drop pallets, make it so that they can't save. You can interrupt any of their actions. In addition to this, he also has a great radar on gathering information on where survivors are at. Because of this, he can constantly apply some map pressure. With the most recent patch, we see that the developers realize that these killers need to have a tool to help them with map pressure. Because of this, as soon as you hook someone, or if you don't know where anyone's at, you can use your static blast, find where the survivors are at, and then go to that location. Rinse and repeat. And then while you're in chase, you can use your other power to stop them from dropping pallets or vaulting to shorten that chase up. Besides this, there are a lot of downsides to the Doctor. The downsides to the Doctor are, number one, he can be combated with Calm Spirit or hiding in lockers. There's ways of beating him. In addition to this, if you choose not to continue looping and he shocks you and you just run somewhere else, his power is kind of negated in that sense too. And sometimes his power doesn't have enough range, or even if it does have enough range, you can still successfully loop him and last second get the pallet drop or get the vault. So he's still a good killer. In the recent patch, he's definitely improved, and for that reason, we are going to put him in the B category. We're going to put him at the top of the B category. He's very borderline B+. I could easily put him B+ behind Hag. You know what? We'll keep him in B+ for now. How about that? We'll keep him in B+ for now. We'll see how it goes, and we will continue going down the list. The next killer to be introduced was Bubba, and as much as I love Bubba, as much as I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre, in the game, it's nothing like that at all. It's not a massacre at all. Bubba, in my opinion, is one of the weakest killers in the game. Now, before you get your pitchforks and torches ready, keep in mind, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, that you can successfully play a killer, get a 4K every single game. That just means you know how to play the killer well. But for the average person playing, and based on statistics, these killers do not perform well across the board on any rank. Okay, so you can build that argument all you want. You can build that tower high saying, I got 75 4Ks in a row with Bubba. It doesn't mean he's a good killer. It just means you're good at perfecting him. And Bubba has a lot of things that go against him. Number one, when he is revving it, or we should start with his pros. We should start with his pros. His first big pro is that he can one-shot people. This is great. He can easily smack someone down with his chainsaw. In addition to this, he also has some amazing basement pressure. If someone is in the basement, you can get multiple people down, or if someone's unhooking, or if two people are around, you can get them both down. It's a little bit more rare, but it does happen. Besides that, that's pretty much all he has going for him. Talking about some of those pros that I mentioned, it's a little bit difficult to pull them off. Let's talk about the instant down. In order to get that instant down with Bubba, you basically need to have a survivor in the middle of nowhere in order to get them down, just because of how long the initial charge time is. It forces you to run add-ons like Carburetor Tuning Guide and what is the other one? Primer Bulb, I believe. And because of this, you would quickly rev your chainsaw, but you're still likely to either hit a pallet, hit a vault, or even hit a wall with Bubba, and then you go into this weird frenzy mode where you're just pissed off. So survivors are easily just going to loop you, use vaults to their advantage, and it forces you to become a M1 killer. Let's talk about that other benefit that we spoke about. He has great basement pressure. True. However, if someone jumps into a locker, you're forced to pick one survivor. There's nothing else you can do. Versus someone like the Huntress, who can literally just walk down, charge a power, or put her ratchet away and then just smack you down, knock you down. If everybody decides to jump into a locker, you're kind of just stuck there and you can't really do anything with him. And his final benefit that I spoke about is knocking multiple people down. By the time you charge that chainsaw up, the survivor's going to see you coming a mile away. They can easily just run away, and that's pretty much it. There's a reason a lot of Bubbas go into the basement and just look at the chest, because it's pretty much all that they're good for. So Bubba is sadly going to be all the way in the bottom on my tier list. He's going to be the first killer in the D tier. I'm sorry, I love Bubba, but he definitely needs some buffs. There's not much that's going for him. So with that being said, we can go ahead and move on to the list. I kind of forgot the track that we're going on here, so I'm just going to go in order now. We'll talk about the pig. Oh boy, get your pitchforks ready because you guys know me, I am not the biggest fan of the pig. The pig definitely needs some buffs as well. I can make a whole 20-minute segment on things that they can do with the pig. I know a long time ago, Cauliflower and Psycho Scorpions, two great exceptional fog whispers, went to Montreal, visited behavior, and I know they gave input on how to buff the pig. So even the developers are agreeing that the pig needs some changes and some tweaks. And we remember the last licensed killer that needed some tweaks for about 2 years was Freddie, and now he's one of the stronger killers in the game. We'll talk about him later on in this video, but the pig is one of those licensed killers that is really falling back. So let's talk about her pros and cons. Her pros, she has the ability to crouch. This ability to crouch puts you in an undetectable mode. You have no heartbeat. You can really sneak up on survivors and get that ambush dash on them and get an easy hit off. In addition to this, you can also mind game at some unsafe loops. You can act like you're going one way and then quickly go around the other way, smack the survivor down. And she also has these bear traps that force survivors to go ahead and take them off, making it so that they need to waste time. In addition to this, if they don't take it off, they will either die, or if they run outside the exit gates, they will die as well. That's pretty much Piggy in a nutshell, but she has a lot of problems, and let's jump on into those problems. Number one, while she is in stealth mode, a stealthy killer is meant to be stealthy, except for the pig. When she's getting ready to attack, she gives a big roar. And because of this, survivors are alerted. If you have sprint burst and you're working on a gen, you could easily just bolt away, and that's pretty much it. That is negated. If you try to mind game somewhere, all the survivor needs to do is run away. That is it. There's nothing else the pig can do, because when she is crouching, she's moving slower, right? You see her going down. There's also a little noise indication of her knife going away, so you just run away. So when she does stand up to come in and attack you, she won't reach you. So that's why it forces a lot of pig players to use combat straps and add-ons like that. And then what ends up happening is that these are the only add-ons you're running when there's so much more problems that add-ons need to fix. For example, we have the terrible traps. The traps, as a lot of people build a case, people that love the pig, they said that, you know, just waste time. And yes, it does waste time. If the generator is popped and the timer is going down, then they need to get the trap off or they will end up dying. However, when was the last time you've honestly seen someone die from a pig trap? The timer is a little bit excessive. It is 2 minutes long. It gives survivors a good chance to getting it off, which is fair. But there's a couple things that need to be changed. I mentioned this in our last tier list video. Number one, when you initially get the trap on your head, you're not meant to see where the boxes are. I don't know why that is a feature in the game. They should make it so that when the timer is actually activated, then you see where the boxes are. Number two, make it so that her lunge is a little bit longer, her roar is a little bit more quieter, she goes down and crouches a little bit faster, and on top of all of this, make it so that that timer is a little bit lower. Because 2 minutes is a little excessive. It almost guarantees that the survivor is going to get the trap out of their head. And if her main power, her main 4-trap power is this, and they get it off like that, there's a lot of changes that will need to be made. So that we are going to put her in the C tier over Bubba. I already see the comments below. I would go and plead my case, but I don't want to waste too much time on that. So I will reply to you guys in the comments if you want to start that discussion. Next on the list is our boy Kenneth, or the Clown, and the Clown is one of those killers that, again, Dead by Daylight introduced to combat looping. I mentioned the Doctor was the first one, and the Clown was the next one. He uses his bottle, he slows people down. This is 100% used to stop looping, and we've seen them actively trying to fix this problem with a lot of killers because it's just a little bit too difficult to combat looping and to remove loop. Now, there's no hiding that the Clown is pretty weak. Even though he can throw bottles at you and slow you down with this, you can just avoid the smoke and run away, or even if you're in the smoke, you still can easily go to a pallet and drop it on him. There's not a lot of pros that the Clown has. He has a long reload time. He has terrible, like I was mentioning the Huntress earlier, she can get you down quickly with 2 hatchets. He can't really do that. If he smacks you down, tosses a bottle, runs at you, it's still really, really long for you to do that. If you avoid looping and know your map well and run to different tiles, you pretty much beat the Clown. He is super, super easy to beat. So So we're going to have to drop Mr. Clowny Boy in the D tier as well with Mr. Letterface. Now, remember, this is without perks. If we were talking about perks and we were putting Save the Best for Last on and things like that, then it becomes a little bit more efficient. But because we're talking about no perks whatsoever, the clown is a little bit lower on our list. And he's below Bubba because he doesn't even have that one-shot ability unless you're running Pinky Finger, and in that case, you need to be really accurate. But if you're going for accuracy, you could just play the Huntress with Eerie Head and have the same effect. With the clown, you would have to hit them with the bottle and then hit them again with your regular power, which doesn't take too long, but still, it's a little bit difficult, and then you would end up having to reload your bottles anyway. Back in the days, I used to rank them a little bit more higher, but just because we opened up the tiers a little bit, so it's S, A+, A, B+, B, C, and D, we're going to drop him all the way down here. Normally, I would put him in the C tier and we can make an argument for him, but for today, I'm a little bit more harsh on Mr. Clowny Boy because he just doesn't really have anything going for him. And as the game evolves and people adapt and learn how to play against certain killers, there's not much that you can do with him. Sure, you can run the exhaust add-ons on a faster reload, but even then, getting those players down really quickly if they choose not to loop is really, really hard. Alrighty, with that out the way, we can go ahead and go into the home stretch and talk about the Demogorgon. Now, the Demogorgon is probably the most iconic killer in the game right now when it comes to popularity, because Stranger Things is at its peak right now, and it's no secret that this brought in so much new players into the game, and he is a fairly balanced killer. He's not terrible, he's not overpowered, he's in that nice sweet Goldilocks spot where if you know him, you play him well, you'll do good. He has his portals, which strictly applies to the pressure, which is something that we've been talking about throughout this entire video. So you can place him down at certain points and go ahead, use the portal when someone is near, and basically come up and say hello and surprise them and smack them down. When you do this, you are also undetectable, so survivors do not know when you're coming. You can easily put this by generators or by people on hooks. Now, the downside to this is that survivors can break this, and that is the only time you can also replace these portals. In addition to this, he also has his shred attack, which can definitely cut some loops down as well, so he also has that aspect of working on loops. However, it's not super duper overpowered. You know, you need to have line of sight of them, and survivors can still easily juke you by running left or right if you're inaccurate with it, and it doesn't have indefinite range, so it's pretty short. Now, you can still drop the pallet on him if you're quick enough, or you can vault quick enough, and it's a little bit difficult to do that. And remember, we are not talking about Save the Best for Last here because we're not talking about perks, so just base Demogorgon, he is your very average killer. We're going to put him in the B spot above the Trapper because he is better than the Trapper. I wouldn't say he's better than Michael Myers, but he is still one of the better, more efficient characters in the game. Next on the list is our boy Freddie, and I absolutely love Freddie as of his recent patches. He just has what every killer needs. Now, Freddie has some interesting add-ons that dynamically change his power up. That add-on is the add-on to put fake pallets, and as you guys know, I've been talking about this throughout the entire stream. Looping is what we're looking for here. If it cuts your traces down, and yes, his power definitely does this no matter what way you put it. If you're using those puddles, it slows you down if you run into them, and you are going to place those puddles at loops, and you can place them on the go, and while you're in those loops, or you can place a fake pallet, get the survivor to loop those fake pallets, and then it's pretty much a guaranteed hit once they drop it down. In addition to this, he has beautiful pressure because he can easily just teleport to generators and continue that snowball effect. And by doing your job efficiently, the more people asleep, your power charges up even faster. So he is like the most beautiful killer there is. And I absolutely love Freddie. I absolutely love Freddie. And if you play him right, you will do amazing. However, he's not all gold because you still can loop him. He's still a regular 115 killer. It's a little bit more difficult to do this if he has dream snares because you can put them down and you'll scream and run a little bit slower. And if you're running multiple of them, you'll go slower and slower. And if you are looping a fake pallet and you don't know and you drop it down, it'll easily just stop you. But it's still doable if you are awake. That is the big factor of it. If you are awake, none of that matters. His power doesn't apply to you, and you're just running against a normal killer. That's pretty much the only downsides there is to Freddie, besides immersion as well. But even with immersion, you would still have to wake yourself up to do things, because once you are asleep, you don't know what direction he's coming from, because his lullaby is in effect. He has no heartbeat, and it is not directional. The only ways to wake up is by messing up a skill check on a generator, which gives you more time, mess up a skill check on yourself, which injures yourself and stops you from healing faster, run across the map to use a clock to wake you up, which is, again, time away from generators, or finding a friend to wake you up, which is 2 people not working on a generator. So beautiful. Well done all around. Well worth the wait of the whole rework with him. And for that reason, we are going to put him in the A category. We're going to put him above the Huntress. He would go in A+, but A+, you'll see the company that's in A+. They're mainly killers that do essentially everything, but they have that one-shot ability to them. And you're probably thinking that's going to be Ghostface. No. No. Ghostface is going to be our next killer on the list. And if you play Ghostface correctly, you will do good. I see a lot of people saying Ghostface is not strong. Ghostface is a really, really efficient killer. True Talent has also done this, where he's done an effective way of playing him by focusing on healing and using his power of stealth as a way of seeing where survivors are healing and smacking them down, and not necessarily using it to expose people. I, on the other hand, like using it so I can expose people, keep the pressure up, and continue going. Ghostface has a lot going for him. He has stealth, he can crouch so you won't be able to see him, he can easily stalk you, get you into the exposed status effect really, really quickly. Out of the 2 stocky boys, he's definitely better, and then he can just chase you, knock you down pretty quickly. Obviously, you can loop him, because again, he's just a normal, regular 115% killer, like I've been saying about everybody else, but it puts you on edge, especially when you're exposed on this. And if someone's saving someone from the hook or doing any other action, he can easily expose you, run after you, and smack you down. Now, the downside to Mr. Ghostface is that his power is a little bit finicky. Survivors can look at you and they might not have line of sight, and they can kick you out of your power. Or on the flip side, you can look at them, they can look at you, and they won't kick you out of your power. So having that instability with his power, and it just being so unstable and not reliable, kind of hinders that, because you don't know when you're safe, when you're not. There's so many times where I'm stalking and then I just get exposed out of nowhere, and I'm like, come on, he's not even looking at me. And then there's some times where I'm like, oh wow, they should have definitely kicked me out of my power there. But having that one-shot ability, putting everybody on edge, Ghostface is definitely going to be up there on our list. And he is going to be in the B+ category above the Doctor, just because of that one-shotting ability. He's not above the Hag, because the Hag has a higher skill cap, and if you play her efficiently, you'll do better. So that's why we have him down there. Now we're going to talk about the off-brand Ghostface, the dollar store Ghostface, the Legion. Oh boy. Oh man. The Legion is really, really not my cup of tea. It's no secret that I despise the Legion. I can simply toss him on as the worst killer in the game. I don't like the Legion whatsoever. The Legion There's nothing good about the Legion, in my opinion. Sure, you can get people injured really quickly, really fast, but let's think about a normal game when playing the Legion. You run to someone, you smack them, and then you have 2 options. Either leave them alone and go for someone else that you have spotted miles away, because it's so rare that people are together when you're playing Legion, especially when finding them early on. Or you can stop yourself from going into your frenzy, which gives them time to run to a pallet or a vault, and then chase them. So you get your free initial hit, but that's it. It's so perk reliant with the Nantophobia and Sloppy Butcher that if you don't have those, absolutely terrible. There's like literally nothing that you can do in that sense. Gens will just fly quickly. People will refuse to heal, because if you're not using your power, they can just easily loop you and get rid of you pretty fast. And that's pretty much it. That's Legion in a nutshell. Your games will go by fist, and that's it. The leg is not good. The leg is not good whatsoever. And I would love to see people pleading their arguments on why they think he's good, because I'm sure there's some of you that can make him efficient. Maybe I'm not looking at it the right way, but I just think he needs so much buffs. And the problem is we're not going to get that buff anytime soon for Legion because they've tried. They've tried so much to make the Legion work in the game, and they just can't hit that spot where the Legion is efficient. They've given him so much patches, or them I should say, so much patches to make them better, and they still can't hit that mark. As of now, they can be a little bit viable if you play them correctly. Like if circumstances are right and you get that initial hit, there's 3 other people, you stab everybody else, then you change your target, you go back to the first guy and he's about to bleed out because of mend, you stab him down, go to all these other people. The scenario just needs to be so correct and so precise that it just rarely happens, and when it doesn't happen, the killer kind of fails, and for that reason he's ranked low on our list. So now we move on to the final 4 killers in the game. The next one is the Plague, another killer who is also reliant on perks, Nanthophobia, and she is definitely better than most of the killers that are in the bottom, but she is still not quite to the point where you're like, all right, you know, she's balanced, she's fair. For that reason, we're putting her in the C tier, but all the way up in the C tier because she can injure people really quickly. Now with the new patch that they recently introduced, she also has a corrupt fountain every time someone fixes a generator. Because of this, it kind of forces survivors to heal as well because you'll automatically be getting your power anyways. Before, she was a little bit weaker. She was D on our list because if survivors refuse to heal with your fountains, your power is completely negated, and all you would do is just barf from them, get them injured really quickly, and you're basically the Legion. With her, she has more than the Legion. She's like a better Legion. She can injure you, and then she can get her corrupt power and then knock you down with range as well. So even if you aren't injured, she can hit you twice with her power and knock you down. So she's pretty good, and she can hit you over objects as well, or if you're working on a generator, if you're going for saves, things like that. But besides that, that's pretty much all she has to offer. If survivors still refuse to heal, she'll only get a maximum to use her power 5 times throughout the entire match, better than the 0 she had before, unless you're running an apple or something like that. And that's pretty much it. Now, the reason she's better than some of these other killers is because if you're on top of someone, you're very accurate with your vomit, you can get them hurt really quickly and then easily smack them down really fast. It's similar to the Huntress, get people down quickly, although then she falls short in other aspects. For that reason, she's in the C tier, and I think we all can agree on that one. I'm sorry if I'm rushing this a little bit, it's just because this video is going way longer than I expected it to, so we'll continue down the list. Next on the list is the Spirit, and oh yes, the Spirit is a beautiful killer. She, in my opinion, is in the A+ tier above the Hillbilly. She is absolutely amazing for so many reasons. So if you guys remember the thing I've been saying throughout this entire video, map pressure and how well are they at combating looping. And when you think of the Spirit, she does it both so easily. When it comes down to looping, she can literally stand still and kill, and survivors would drop their pallets, right? It's really easy. Or if they choose not to, she can easily just wait a little bit, figure out what they're doing, use their power, they won't even realize it, and by the time they do, it's too late. In addition to this, if you're a good Spirit, use your sound, you can hear exactly where the survivors are running, see the scratch marks, and get on top of them, smack them down. You can't really combat what you can't see, you know? And you would think that would make sense for the Wraith, but the Wraith is a different story. You still can technically see him a bit. He's just translucent, not really transparent and invisible. So with the Spirit, she can easily combat looping. If you play her successfully, she can simply just mind game you, smack you while you're running to a vault or a pallet or anything like that. And when it comes down to map pressure, she's super efficient as well, because when she is using her power, if you're using the right add-ons as well, she can go by really quickly, go straight to a generator, knock you down, rinse and repeat. If someone's on the hook, she can act like she's going away and just stand still there, and then pull you off when you're saving someone. There's just so much good things to say about Spirit. I don't think we need to argue about that one too much. And when it comes down to why she's better than the Hillbilly, it's just because she has that extra edge when it comes down to looping. And the Hillbilly, as I mentioned, can still be looped. And you might be saying, well, the Hillbilly has the ability to one-shot you, but the Spirit does a pretty good job at knocking you down quickly anyways. Moving on the list, we have the Oni, and the Oni is definitely in the A+ tier as well, but he's better than the Hillbilly in my opinion. Not better than the Spirit, better than the Hillbilly. And the reason why is that he rewards you for good gameplay. By smacking people down, you build your power up. You then have a very forgiving chainsaw, essentially, that you can use for 60 seconds. If you use some of his add-ons, especially, I forgot what the green add-on is called, but it is the most broken add-on in the game. You can literally charge your power up faster than an insta-saw Billy and smack someone down quickly. In addition to this, you can hit multiple survivors, so great basement pressure, great pressure if someone's unhooking someone, great pressure if two people are working on generators, and it's very unforgiving in the sense that it's not a cone like the Hillbilly, and if you hit something, that's it. You can literally go ahead, use your power, run into a wall, and continue just dashing in rage and smacking people down. You can then break pallets just like the Hillbilly. Everything else is similar in that sense, but just the fact that it's more forgiving and you can hit multiple people, I would say makes him better than the Hillbilly. Long story short, it has less of a skill cap for the same amount of reward. So for that reason, he's better than the Hillbilly, in my opinion. It can go either way. It's very, very close. The A+ tier can arguably go any way. The Hillbilly can be on top, the Only can be on top, the Spirit can be on top. Doesn't matter. So that's the reason why I'm putting him up there, just because, as I mentioned, it's a lower skill cap to the same amount of reward, and it rewards you for good gameplay. And you don't really, need to worry about getting your power because it charges up really quickly. The only way to deny him his power is being immersive the entire game, and that doesn't really happen because you have to work on generators. And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, the Deathslinger. Where do I rank the Deathslinger? I'll put that out for you guys right now. He is in the B category, and he is in the highest of the B category. So you're probably looking at me and you're like, well, King, you've made a video not too long ago saying that the Deathslinger is better than the Huntress. Oh, wrong person. Sorry, Plegu. You're not that good. The Deathslinger is better than Huntress. And at that moment in time, I would have agreed. But as I played the game for the next 2 weeks and fully understood him, and people started realizing how to combat him, how to play against him, I realized quickly that he is not as good as he seems, and I take my word back. I apologize for that. I was incorrect. And I would like to reform my opinion and say he's in that spot where he's just like the Demogorgon in Myers, that he's just in a nice average spot. If you play him well, you're going to do well. If you play him poorly, you'll play poorly. He's very, very fun to play, and that's another aspect of it that I took into account as well. But when it comes down to gameplay, he just doesn't have that it factor. He can easily shoot you through windows, bring you in, stop you from running away quicker, and pull you back in quickly with perks such as Save the Best for Last, which we're not talking about perks in this particular video. It still does help him a lot. However, when compared to like the Huntress, he doesn't have infinite range. You can easily run left or right to make him miss his shot, and that way he needs to reload and do it all over again. And he has poor pressure when it comes to generators. Sure, he can aim at you from 60 meters away, but every time you see him though, when he's 16 meters away, you can easily, or 18 meters I should say, you can easily just dodge it and continue working on the gen until he's closer and run away, or you can just run away at that point. So not a lot of gen pressure. He does, however, have that factor of making loops a little bit shorter. If you get shot over the pallet, you become injured, so kind of like the Legion again, or the Plague in that sense. But then if you're lucky when playing him, you can like walk around the pallet, smack the people down, or pull them in closer, and then smack them down as well. So for that reason, he is in the B section, and I would love to hear what you guys think about him as well. And that, my friends, is going to wrap it up for the ultimate tier list video. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know where you disagree and agree with me, because I'm sure we're going to start a lot of conversations with this. These videos are normally well received, so thank you guys for all of the support. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you leave a like down below. If I didn't speak too much about a certain killer that you enjoy or want to know more about, feel free to leave a comment below or join our Discord. We'll talk about it more over there. I did rush through certain killers, I'll admit to that, because time is of the essence and I gotta go here pretty soon. But yeah, that's gonna wrap this video up. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, like I said, leave a like down below, subscribe for more Dead by Daylight content. As always, I'm the King. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fog.